Hey everybody, this is Brent Scott with the Blitz C&E channel, and today I'm talking about my 1990 Corvette that I put an Accusump oil accumulator on. So if you're not familiar with my car, I originally built this car for road racing. It's kind of like my budget road racing car. Now obviously, as a serious road racing car, you'd want to put a dry sump system on there. Well, I didn't want to spend the money on that. I wanted to keep this in the budget build. So what I did when I built my 383 is I built it with a racing oil pan on there. And I did some work to the oil pump and ported the oil passages in anticipation that, with the G's that I would generate with this car and the suspension, that I could get away with it. Well, unfortunately, it turns out I wasn't able to get away with that. I did suffer from oil loss. And even when I'm driving in back roads and high-speed corners, even with elevation changes, I started getting pressure loss issues. So I did some research on this, and it turns out this is not an uncommon problem for the C4 Corvette. And I've read stories about guys who spent a lot of money on putting custom oil pans on there, and they still experience the same thing with acceleration out of the corners, loss of oil pressure, or even in deep braking, that they would suffer from oil starvation. So what I've come up with is I put basically the poor man's dry sump system on there, the oil accumulator. And so far, I've had success with it. I would say this though, if I, in hindsight, to do it over again on the motor, I would have put crank scrapers on there. I believe what's happening is not only that with a high pressure oil pump, it's pulling a lot of oil out at high RPMs, but also I believe that oil is getting captured around the crank and the case, and it's not falling back into the pan, and that's where the crank scrapers help. Obviously, crank scrapers will create windage and hurt power, but what good is all that power if you have no oil pressure and you blow up your motor, right? So something to think about if you're building a motor from scratch. You might want to do that, and you want to keep with a wet sump system. So basically, I didn't want to put this accumulator system inside the car with me. Something about hot 200 plus degree oil, if it bursted in there, getting on you, wasn't a pleasant feeling. So what I was able to do is I was able to buy the smallest accumulator you could from Canton, and I was able to fit it underneath, in between the radiator, the cross member, and where the steering rack and pinion is. Now on 89 and later Corvettes, they changed the geometry on the radiator. They put a slant on there, so there's a bit more space in there to do this. Unfortunately, I don't have my 86 Corvette. On the older ones, I know the radiator is straight up and down, so I don't know if it'll work on older models, but you can watch the video, maybe give you some ideas on if it's possible or not. I put the smallest one in there. You might be able to fit a little bit bigger one on there. Now you can buy it as a kit. I piecemealed it together, probably saved $150 or something like that. I'll put it in the description below the parts that I use, so you have a reference. One thing that I will say is you got to be careful is if you buy it, the sandwich plate here, they call it small block Chevy. So maybe I didn't save money because I still have this. Well, this is small block Chevy, but it's for the LS. It will not fit. You see in the video, I have the right one on there for the small block Chevy Gen 1. It's got 2 ports on there, so it's very different. It's a different size, so this will not work. So pay attention to that when you're ordering your parts. Hopefully you like the video. Feel free to leave comments. I'll answer what I can, and thanks for watching. All right, here is my setup on my 1990 C4 Corvette. As you can see, this is my Accusump setup, and there's not a lot of room on these cars. This is about the best I could do. That is the smallest Accusump that you can buy from Canton. As you can see, I put it in between here, the radiator, and there's the power steering cooler itself. I had to make some clearance on there. I didn't use anything special, just a unistrut with some pipe claps. Reinforced it with some rubber in there. The valve is right here, on off. It's a manual valve. I don't think I could ever fit the electronics on here. As you can see how tight it is coming against everything. I ran the line up through on top of the power steering rack, and it does go through by the harmonic balancer, but it's safe. It's tied off, so it won't get snagged by it. And if you come back here to the back here, get an angle. It's by the motor mount. It comes up high. As you can see, I got it pretty good out of the way. I put it like a thermal sleeve over it to protect it from the header, and the headers are wrapped. And actually, you can see it really has a lot of airspace in between here. The sandwich plate
fits on there. You got to make sure you get the small block Chevy version. Be careful because there's one they call for small block, but it's an LS. It will not fit. You got to make sure you get the small block Gen 1. And one of the plugs you plug off here, that's if you wanted to run an oil cooler. But of course, there's no room on this car without getting rid of some stuff. I just used a 45-degree angle and with a 90 on there, and it fits. And as you can see, I was able to use still standard filter on there and still fit it in between the header. Of course, the wrap comes over, but it's not touching. Yeah, other than putting the Accusump inside the car itself, this is about the only option. Now, back up front here, I had an 86 Corvette. I know they changed this in 88 where the radiator was slanted, so I can't say for sure if that will fit on anything prior to 1990.